Good morning, good morning. This feels, honestly, I think the word I used in my post was convergence. It's either convergence or culmination or integration. This feels for me like, I used to spend all this time and all this energy trying to get things around me the way that I wanted them to be. And for me, that was this perpetual act of giving my power away, and I was always exhausted from it. And then I had no energy to actually make the changes that I wanted to make. And so I think that's why this is so significant to me. And the reason that I'm here today is because I really want to share this. I want to share everything that's taken place in this space for me to finally arrive in this place after it's been 11 years of seeking. Like, it's 11 years since I started my awakening journey, and landing in this place now, there's a little bit of me that's like, I wish someone had told me this then. But there's actually a bigger part of me that's like, it makes so much sense. And I'm really glad that I had to wait, and I'm really glad that I had to experience what it was like to spend so much time giving my power away so that I can really appreciate and love what I'm getting to experience now. So really what I'm wanting to share today, there's a couple of sides to this, right? I'm really passionate about the developmental psychology side of personal growth and how personal growth relates directly to how we parent ourselves. So this is not just for parents. Obviously, so many of the challenges that we face begin when we're tiny, and that's not new. And there's plenty of therapies that explore talking about what happened when we were children. The thing is, we can talk about what happened when we were children until we're blue in the face, but unless we start parenting ourselves differently, we're going to continue to respond to our challenges in the way that our parents responded to our challenges, which is what got us to where we are now, which a lot of which we can be grateful for, some of which isn't going to serve us going forward. And so one of the things I'm going to talk about today is this element of reparenting ourselves that I'm insanely passionate about. Another thing that I'm going to talk about today is the difference between the masculine way of being and the feminine way of being. I'm not hugely into dichotomies. I feel myself as really fluid, but the masculine way of being is very achievement oriented. And so there are women all across the planet in this achievement oriented mindset, wondering why they're not feeling fulfilled. And so the other thing that I'm really passionate about is relationship with self, and that being the foundation for our fulfillment. So that's the second thing I want to talk about. The third thing I want to talk about is relationship with source energy, or relationship with the universal energy field, because there is so much support there for us that most of us aren't accessing. And even when I knew this, I wasn't accessing it for myself in the way that I needed to. So I'm really excited to dive into that today. Thank you for being here live. Thank you for those who are here for the replay. Before I get into all of that stuff, because I'm a bit of a geek in that respect, I love it, I feel like I want to connect with look, I want to acknowledge everything that has led every single one of us to this point in our journeys, because there's been really hard stuff and there's been really beautiful stuff, and we've all been through different stuff, and in so many ways we're unique, but in so many ways we are connected. We have these similarities in the heart space. At that deep level, we're all really looking for the same stuff, right? Like, we want to feel safe, we want to feel fulfilled, we want to feel loved, we want to be able to love freely without getting in our own way. And I know what it's like to not have those things. And I know what it's like to be in this place of seeking and trying to make change and inner conflict, because so much of my life for such a long time, even after I became spiritual or I became more awake, was inner conflict. So it feels really important not just to acknowledge the mental element of this, but to acknowledge the emotional element of this, because what we're talking about is really interesting and cool, but it's more than that, because it's so deeply personal. And my intention for being here is to share an experience that is deeply personal, and also to connect in that way, because I don't want to just see your brain. Like, I don't want to just see the things that you're interested in. I'm not here just for that. I'm here on this planet and I'm here on this call this morning because I care so much about the heart. And I see so many people struggling and suffering preventively, avoidably, because these skills aren't taught. It's not cultural. This perspective, this understanding hasn't been embodied in our culture. This is the entire framework that we're meant to be raised in as humans. And it's really been broken down and stripped away over the last 3-4 generations in particular. So I want to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you here now. I want to acknowledge you across time and space if you're watching this later, because we are all human beings and we all need love. And so, yes, we're going to go through some awesome stuff, but that really is my intention in everything that I do, is to love, because where we have love, we have fulfillment. Where we have fulfillment, we can start building our lives from a place of creativity and a place of creation instead of from a place of lack. And that's what the Heart of the Goddess is about to me as well. And I'm going to talk about that today, because this is my number one favorite way of doing this. I'm in the middle of it again at the moment. It's not going to be like, this is kind of going to be woven through what we talk about today, because for me, it's not a case of like, oh, here's all this good stuff, and then like, here's this thing. It's, you know, whether or not we go through this journey together in a really practical way, if you want to come onto the program that's starting on the 1st of December, or whether this is just something that you connect with and you start to explore in your own life. What I love about this work, and what I love about using archetypes specifically, I guess this is the 4th thing that I'm talking about. 4 is the heart number, right? What I love about this work is because the subconscious works with symbols and imagery, because our brains like to be able to put things into boxes. Because if you're connecting with my work or you're vibrating with my frequency, you're probably an intelligent, passionate, curious person. I find that having these archetypes, having these anchors, it was so much more tangible for me than just trying to connect to the universal energy, which is invisible, you know, having these aspects, having these archetypes, having these elements, these parts of ourselves. So I'm going to explore that today as well. And the way that that ties in with the developmental psychology, because the archetypes progress in sequence. This is how we develop. So essentially what we're looking at is how we develop, how our hearts develop, where that got twisted up, where we stopped believing that we have everything we need within us, and then unlocking that, correcting that, integrating that, so we can have that experience again, one piece at a time, in a way that feels manageable, in a way that also feels exciting to chew on. Because if you're a bit of a mental person like I am, you know, I love my mental energy, having something to chew on and geek out on and be like, oh my God, that's to do with that and that's to do with that. It added a lot of excitement and joy to the process for me. So I'm going to bring that today as well. But before we dive into all of this, because we've got so much to cover over the next hour, I want to make sure that you have water or tea. I want to make sure that you're nourished. If you need to organize that for yourself, please do. If you want to have a pen and paper with you, that might feel nourishing. But I also want to encourage you to just let this wash over you, because the words are one part of this, and I love my words, but the energy that's present here is actually really, really important as well, because this supports us at a non-verbal level, in an embodied way, this energy will seep into our beautiful cells and nourish us. So yeah, so don't worry if your brain gets overwhelmed. Don't worry if I get a bit distracted or go on some tangents. The way that I speak tends to be quite cyclic as well. So if something isn't making sense, just kind of stay with me and it's going to come back around. And I think that's all the housekeeping. If you have distractions that might be around you that you can eliminate, I encourage you to do so, to take this time for yourself to fully receive this. And yeah, let's take a couple of breaths before we dive into this to really acknowledge the body, to acknowledge that which exists beyond these words, beyond this mind. So if you'd like to let the eyes close down, I really invite you to do that. And just notice for a moment how your toes feel. Maybe give them a little wiggle. Notice how your breath feels. Notice how your eyes feel. You can even move them around a little bit behind your closed lids if that feels good for you. Notice how your fingertips feel. Notice that there's a warmth that's inside you and around you right now. That your body, without any conscious attention, without any conscious effort, is maintaining a temperature of roughly 37 degrees Celsius. You're not trying to do that. You might nourish yourself by adding or removing layers, but your body's doing that without you having to try. Notice how the soles of your feet feel, the arches of your feet. Let your attention move over the arches of your feet as if you're coasting over the crest of a wave in the ocean. And listen closely to the sounds around you for a moment. There are no sounds around you at the moment. Listen closely to the silence. And placing 2 hands on your belly, feeling the way that she's moving softly with each breath. Feeling the warmth of your skin. It's just been waiting for you to notice it. Now let's turn that listening a little deeper inwards and notice your muscles in your body. Notice any areas of tension. Notice areas of relaxation also. We're very quick to find tension that we think we need to poke and prod. But notice the areas of relaxation and ease. Soften into those areas of relaxation and ease. Soften into the belly with the breath. Listen into your beautiful heart for a moment. Can you hear her? She's been beating since the day that you were born. Perhaps placing a hand to feel that heartbeat. And wherever your heart's at, inviting her to open just a little, just as much as feels safe for you right now. Being so gentle with yourself here. And noticing if a little bit of sensation arises in your body when you do that. And if it does, giving yourself the biggest cuddle. Holding yourself like a precious, precious child who's just been tremendously brave. Letting yourself come back to that heart center and noticing that there's just a little more warmth here now. It's just a little more openness here now. It might only be incremental, but it's there. You didn't have to try, all you did was listen. Listening to that heartbeat. Feeling that beautiful heartbeat. Sensing that beautiful heartbeat like a lover. And letting that beautiful breath become really full for a moment. The fullest full that you can breathe being more than enough. Coming back through that heart center. Letting that heart center be present on this call today so you can listen with her. She will never lie to you. Letting the eyes float open when you feel ready. I could spend hours in that space. I do spend hours in that space. I have spent hours in that space over the last couple of days, which has been really lovely, to give that time to my inner child instead of always my worldly children, who I love dearly. Cool. Okay. So let's dive into this. I want to start with development because the love of science dies hard. Okay, so I am a massive fan of a man called Dr. Gordon Neufeld. He's a developmental psychologist. If you've come across Gabor Mate's work as well, he does amazing work around addiction and trauma. And he and Dr. Neufeld are close colleagues. They wrote a book together, and I'm incredibly passionate about this body of work. The main message that Gordon Neufeld brings to the world that has impacted me at such a deep level is that maturation, growth, right? So this is physical growth, this is emotional growth, this is spiritual growth, this is maturing into our human potential, is a direct result of deep rest in attachment. So when I had my children, I became really interested in attachment theory. But Dr. Gordon Neufeld, he extends on this quite a lot. He talks about attachment over the first 7 years instead of just in the context of young babies. And he talks about, you know, how you cannot teach maturation. You cannot teach someone to become truly mature. You can try. You can attempt to control someone's behavior. You can attempt to doctor how someone appears, how someone expresses themselves, how someone shows up in the world, but you cannot teach actual maturation. You cannot teach growth. And so this is the issue that I have with a lot of teachers out there at the moment, is they're trying to teach spiritual growth. You can't teach spiritual growth. You can try. You can teach people to constantly prune what's going on in their plant body. This is my analogy right now. You can teach people to prune their behavior. You can teach people to prune their thoughts. It doesn't actually create the healthy, robust plant. For that, you need deep roots and you need good soil. And that soil is love. And those roots are attachment. So attachment actually holds the entire universe together. You look at it in terms of physics. You look in the solar system. It is the pull of gravity from the sun that holds our entire solar system together. And so most of us are running around trying to prune, wondering why we're still not feeling healthy, we're still not feeling well, we're still not feeling fulfilled. I'm so passionate about this attachment because what the research has actually uncovered and what Gordon Neufeld talks about is how that maturation is a natural process. A plant doesn't have to try and grow. If you put a plant in good soil and it has a strong root system into the ground, that plant is naturally going to grow healthy, right? Whereas we think as humans that we need to control and fix and change ourselves all the time, and it's actually not true. That only becomes necessary. That kind of remedial approach to ourselves and to our living only becomes necessary when we don't have a deep, secure attachment. And most of us, bless our beautiful parents who tried their best, do not have a deep, secure attachment with ourselves. We didn't have the experience of being able to rest in love. When we rest in love, we grow. When we rest in love, we naturally become healthy. We naturally orient towards the light, right? As opposed to having to force it. So that's the first kind of foundational thing that I wanted to lay down for you, because the whole foundation of the way that I approach my growth now and the way that I show up in my life and creating the changes that I want to create doesn't come through trying, doctoring, remedial approaches. Everything that I do comes from a deep foundation of attachment with myself now, because I'm an adult. So it's not appropriate for me to be attached to my parents in the same way anymore. And the beautiful thing about that is a deep attachment with the self doesn't come loaded with all the issues that our parents came loaded with, right? I want to invite you for a minute to stop and reflect on what your mother and father are like. We're not going to go down the rabbit hole of blame. That's not what this is about. But just take a moment to call them into your mind's eye and see them in front of you. And just notice what you see. And we'll start with the father first. So I want to invite you just to imagine your dad, whether or not you had a relationship with him. If you didn't have a relationship with him at all, that's significant as well. Just notice that. Notice how you feel when you think about your dad. I'm really wrapping you up in love for this, because this is not always easy, right? There is so much loving support for you here in this. Think about your dad for a moment. Think about how your dad responded when you had a hard time, when you made a mistake, when you were learning, right? Which is what that is. Think about how your dad responded. And just notice what comes easily to mind. You don't need to go digging up too much here right now. Think about now how your mum responded. Right? This is edgy too. So when I think about how my mum responded, it was like distract, stimulate, make it better. It's all good. Yeah. Your mum was probably different, or she might have been the same in that way. So I want to invite you just to notice and connect with that. How your mum responded to you when you made a mistake, when you were learning. You may also, as an adult now, have some insight into how your mum responds to herself when she makes a mistake, when she's learning. So just notice what this brings up for you for a minute. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put this alongside how you respond to yourself when you make a mistake and when you're learning. If you are anything like me until fairly recently, it's not pretty, right? And so this is where we start to really get into the concept of reparenting, because until we step up to become our own parent, to become what our inner child needs, we will continue to respond to ourselves in the way that we were responded to, which is often destructive and shaming and basically unhelpful, right? All of that stuff aside, it's not helpful. And so I get so passionate about this. So this concept of reparenting begins with a secure attachment with ourselves. We need to be attached to ourselves. We need to be invested in our own nourishment, in our own care, in our own well-being, in the same way that we would with a child. This doesn't mean that we need to go out and do all the things, right? Because there is a whole industry out there that's going to tell you that you need this and you need this and you need this, and then you're going to be all good. The real power that happens here is silent. It doesn't cost any money. It is a choice that you make. You can choose to step into things that are going to support you in that, absolutely. And if your body is guiding you, then you do that. But this has to start with you. It has to start with the simplest, most basic. I am going to put myself first now and care for myself. Not fix myself, not change myself, care for myself. That's our foundation. That's our roots. That's our soil. That's our love. So that's that piece I'm going to put down over here. The second thing that comes into this, I'm sure it's not the same second thing that I said earlier. I'm not very good at structure like that. The second thing that comes into this is how we receive nourishment. So again, you can look at this in relation to your parents. You can look at this in relation to yourself and the way that you relate to yourself. So take a moment to connect with what kind of things you do in attempts to nourish yourself. So if you've got a pen and paper, you might want to write this down. For me, it used to be cigarettes, which is not nourishing. It used to be cannabis, which can be beautifully medicinal, but used all the time is not nourishing. It would be coffee or sugar or something creamy. These were my attempts at nourishing myself. And so I'm gonna give you a moment. I'm gonna give you a moment to connect with what is there for you. I'm really curious to hear if you feel inspired to share anything. You can do that in the chat box, or if I posted the replay, feel free to pop it in the comments. The things that you've attempted to do to nourish yourself, or the things that you do to attempt to nourish yourself, sorry. And before you start beating yourself up about this, I want to point out that this is an attempt at nourishing yourself. You're trying to care for yourself here. You're just doing it in the ways that you were taught, which aren't necessarily actually nourishing. So, pardon me. So acknowledge yourself for that, right? And then consider whether these things on your list are actually strengthening you and nourishing you, or if they're weakening you. And you're going to know this straight away just by looking at it. And the thing with this, right, is that I know I used to do this all the time. So many of us tell ourselves that there's an ultimatum, particularly when it comes to any kind of unhealthy or addictive behavior that we want to change. We tell ourselves we either do the thing or we feel like we're being deprived and we miss out. We don't recognize that there's actually third and fourth options here. So the third option is choosing what I call blisscipline, which comes easily when you genuinely want to nourish yourself. You're like, I'm actually not going to do that because that's going to weaken me and I love myself, right? The fourth option is to give yourself the nourishment that you're craving. Oh yeah, I'm so hearing you, Bianca Gorgeous. So it's like that getting out of your body, right? The wanting to distract. Yeah, I really hear that. So loving yourself in that attempt to nourish yourself, and recognizing that beyond this ultimatum of I can either get what I need in an unhealthy way or not get what I need, which is all that most of us have had the option of as children. We either got to get what we needed in an unhealthy way or just go without. And so most of us took the unhealthy way, right? There is the option to nourish yourself at a deep level, to do something that's actually nourishing, that's actually going to feel good. So I'm not saying that there isn't an element of behavior change that comes with this, but the behavior change is an extension of that natural process of maturation. How am I going to treat someone that I care about deeply? So when we have that foundation, behavior change becomes a real no-brainer, really. And if we're not ready to make the change yet, then we just don't. And we just kind of watch ourselves and love ourselves in that. And then because we're nourished and because we're connected, it doesn't take very long for us to go, actually, that's not working for me anymore at all. And the change becomes much, much, much more effortless. So there's that piece. So I'll pop that down here. So we've got the reparenting, we've got the true nourishment. I guess you could call these like the pillars. So the third piece, and this is to do with the nourishment, this is the extension of the nourishment, right? And this is where we kind of get into the spiritual realm, which isn't for everyone. And I tried to leave it out of my work for a long time because I get that it's not for everyone, but I really can't because I get so much out of it. So I talked about this universal energy field, right? All of the energy and love we could possibly need is everywhere. Except most of us tend to look away from that because we're so busy trying to get that met in this physical world. But there is an abundant flow of love energy. And I only discovered this through working as an energy medicine practitioner. I gave it all away for a really long time. I didn't actually stop to give it to myself. It took me a while to get to that. But it's there. And so, you know, I can only go so much into this today. I did do a call last week talking about this. So you can have a look at the replay for that. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll send it to you. Yeah, so when we can learn, when we feel safe, when our roots are strong, when we feel connected to ourselves, we can then, through that natural process of maturation, begin to learn how to connect not just with the physical world, but with the greater spiritual world. And I was talking about this, I'll talk about this in the other call. I've talked about this in the other call. It's like a switchboard. So you can tap into whatever energy you could possibly need instead of trying to get it from the physical world. So I'm not going to say heaps more about that now because there's a whole call there and I'm aware of time. Holy moly, we've gone through so much time already. This is so nice though. Yeah, so there's that. Feel free to tap in with that. The extension of that is in this archetypes work. It's in this goddess work, because for me, each of these archetypes represent one area of this switchboard that we can tap into. And it kind of brings us around to this fourth point, which I'm again sure is not the same thing that I talked about earlier, but learning through connection, right? So this is kind of the other side of growth through attachment, is learning through connection. And this is something that's really prevalent in beautiful, conscious, heart-centered parenting, it's also something that we need to bring to ourselves, because we can learn through connection with physical people. So you and I having this conversation right now, your cells are learning from my cells. It happens through the limbic brain. It happens through the mirror neuron system, which ties into the nervous system. It's really exciting and cool. I could literally sit here and talk about the weather for an hour and your body would learn things. But we can also get that through connection with these archetypal energies. This is where I get really freaking passionate, right? So I need to kind of introduce the archetypes now, because there's things that you need to understand about the progression and about how each of them show up in this process. Because, so take the Huntress, for example. No, let me start at the beginning. Hang on. I haven't even told you my story yet. Bugger my story. We'll come back to that later. If you want to hear about my story, ask me. I was a mess. I'm now not a mess. I love doing this. I'm happy to be here with you. Yeah, okay, so we've got our 7 archetypes, right? And these correlate directly with the developmental process. Don't ask me how that happened. My daughter was 3 weeks old, sleeping on my chest, and I picked up my laptop and I downloaded this in 2 days. It was insane. I swear she opened some kind of portal when she was born and just brought this work through with her and was like, here you go, Mum, here's your life's work. Crazy. Anyway, so so we have our 7 archetypes. They progress developmentally. So each one builds on the last. The first one is the inner child. The reason that I tell you this now is because I don't include the inner child in the switchboard situation. The inner child is not in the switchboard. The inner child is here. The inner child is the foundation. The inner child, if you only connect with one of these archetypes at all, let it be the inner child, because like I was saying at the start, this relationship with self is literally everything. Because if we get the relationship with self right, we have our growth and our maturation taken care of. We have our nourishment and our fulfillment taken care of. We have our experience of love taken care of. These, particularly as women, are the 3 main things that we seek. So when we have those taken care of and we're not burning all this energy looking for them out there, that's when everything changes. So the inner child is here, right? She's the foundation. She is also the baby or the child in the developmental stage, right? The next archetype we have is the Huntress. So the Huntress, you know, is correlated with Artemis, with Diana, with these beautiful goddesses of the hunt. They are the virgin goddesses. This is like the teenage years, the early teenage years. It's the individuation into a unique self. It is learning self-reliance. It's learning to say no. I'm drawing this line here. It's learning to aim and focus our energy. This is the energy of the Huntress. Now the Huntress is in the switchboard. This is, oh, I love it so much. Okay, so we don't have to try and be her. The first few times I tried to do this work, the first few times I did this work, I moved through these archetypes. I'm in my 8th round now. The first few times I did this, I thought I had to try and embody her. Untrue. I needed to connect with her. She is an archetypal energy in the collective unconscious, in the human energy field. If I'm moving into a situation where I need to be grounded, I need to be focused, I need to be able to set boundaries, I can go, yo, Huntress, I need you today. I need you today. Teach me, guide me. And she comes. She rises up because she's in us. You know, I talk about the universal energy field like this, but it's actually in us. These are elements of the human psyche, as well as archetypal energies, right? So you can take it whichever way works better for you. If you're more scientific, think about it as an aspect of the psyche. If you're more spiritual, you can think about it as a beautiful deity that you can connect in with. Just do what works for you. So that's the Huntress, right? This is the individuation. Then we move into the Lover. And the Lover is when we begin to connect deeply and intimately with others. And so the Lover energy in us is where we learn how to be seen, where we learn how to be vulnerable, where we learn how to temporarily let go of that defined self that we created in the Huntress, and to really connect and be moved and move others. So again, she's in the switchboard. This is Aphrodite. We can connect with her. We can let ourselves learn from her. Our limbic brain and mirror neuron system can learn from the archetypal energy, as well as learning just from other people, right? So, oh, I'm gonna have a sip of my tea, hang on. Okay, after the Lover, we have the Queen. The Queen is when we really rise into our place in the world. So the Queen is like our 20s, our young adulthood, where we learn to stand, we learn how to be disliked, which is incredibly difficult, especially if we're trying to get the needs for love, nourishment, safety met outside of ourselves. The Queen really asks us to learn how to stand in our power. She's also the gateway archetype. So from the inner child up to the Queen, inner child, Huntress, Lover, Queen, these are like the foundational energies that get us into adulthood, right? We can learn from her. Then we meet our first integral archetype, who's the Priestess. And the Priestess is where we connect with our spiritual power. For me, this is Isis, Iset, not the radical group, obviously, the Egyptian goddess, for those of you who haven't connected with her. The Priestess energy, I honestly couldn't even do justice to right now. But she's integral. So this is where those first four energies actually come together. She's a little bit Queen. She's a little bit Lover. She's a little bit Huntress. She's so connected to her inner child. The Priestess energy, I'm not going to try to do justice to right now. I'm just going to leave it there. Following on from the Priestess, we have the Medicine Woman. This is where we learn how to heal ourselves. This is something that I'm tremendously passionate about. This is when the switchboard comes in enormously. And if you haven't listened to that other call, I really encourage you to do so. But the Medicine Woman's also deeply grounded. And so she's also related to the Crone energy. She's also got this incredibly deep earth energy about her. And as we awaken her within us, she does all kinds of wonderful things. I'm going to come back to that later. I'm sitting in between Queen and Priestess right now. So I can feel that, you know, I can't connect as well with these just because of where I'm at in this round of the journey. But anyway, the final archetype is the Creator. When this was first birthing through, my friend was sitting with me and she's like, there's a seventh, it's the mother. And I'm like, no, it's not. The mother's not repressed. It's not. And I took a big breath and it landed. So the Creator is where we become intentional creators of our own lives. This is what we learn from this energy. Again, I'm not going to try and go into all of this now. Those last three energies, the Priestess, the Medicine Woman, the Creator, feel really obscure and difficult to access until you've done the first four. So I'm just going to acknowledge that because they build on each other, and the foundation of those first four, the first five, including the Priestess, are really important to be able to access the Medicine Woman and the Creator in a really powerful way. But essentially, the intention of this work and the intention of moving through these archetypes is to arrive in this place of being an intentional creator of our lives. So this is creating blissfully from a place of fulfillment, from a place of joy, from a place of I am already enough. I am already enough, and I am here to have a beautiful time on this planet. And the way that I've been exploring doing that has been through connection with these energies. It's also been through unlocking these energies in our bodies, because the thing that I really want you to understand is, you know, while I talk about it like this, they're not out there. They're here already. You were born with them. If you have squished them or suppressed them, they are giving you trouble already, I assure you. If you've suppressed the Huntress, you're going to be someone who gets stuck in cycles. You're going to be someone who feels a bit domesticated and trapped. You might have tightness through your jaw. There's a whole, I've actually written out all of the symptoms of when each of these archetypes are repressed. and then what we experience when we can unlock and integrate them. And if you haven't seen that already, it's in the book, and it's also in the link that I'm going to give you in a little bit with the info for the program. So that's that. I feel like I want to ask if there are any questions before I go into the last section of this and see what else is there. I'm going to stop and take a couple of breaths and just let all of this fire land for a moment. I really want to hear if there's any questions or there's anything coming up for you. Really acknowledging that this is a lot of information. Really encouraging you to just allow it to move through you. Coming back to the love. Coming back to the love, which is what this is about. And I want to invite you for a moment too. Oh, that's awesome, gorgeous. Thank you for sharing. I love those adjectives. I'm feeling expansive and spongy. I want to invite you to soak up all of that love. Because like I said, you know, when I first birthed this, it was a really mental thing for me. It's just not anymore. But it's beautiful to have the context, to have the container, to have the understanding, to have the landmarks along the way in the journey, to be like, oh yes, I've shifted that. But this is definitely about the energy. So I think that was the main stuff that I actually wanted to talk about. I'm really passionate about growth through receiving as opposed to through doing. And so my intention for this program specifically is not to do most of the work for you, but to give you this experience of connection, because we don't need more things to do. There are plenty of things on this planet to do. And we were meant to receive this love as children. But for whatever reason, our parents weren't able to give it to us in its fullest capacity. And so I want to give that to you so that you can give it to yourself, so that all of this can just cascade and unfold and happen, right? So that's my intention with this program. We're starting on December 1st. I'm thinking of running 2 separate groups depending on numbers, because I want to keep it small enough for us to have a really beautiful, intimate space. So there'll probably be a Tuesday group and a Friday group. The course itself is going to be 90-minute calls fortnightly, which is really exciting and beautiful. So these are interactive. We're going to be exploring the archetypes. We're going to be doing energy work. We're going to be learning how to self-love, because everyone talks about self-love. I was reading about self-love for years. It wasn't until I actually learned how to do it that I stopped reaching for the other things as much. And oh yeah, and I'm doing like a grounding altar pack as well to help anchor this. I think because of the energy work background for me, it's like I'm really passionate about having a space with grounded. I have this in front of my computer right now. I connected with her this morning before jumping on this call. Having grounded objects really helps. So I want to send you things. So I'm going to send you things as part of this. And I want to do check-in buddies as well, so that you have someone else that you're doing this journey with, and you can bounce and talk about your process and that kind of thing, as opposed to doing a freaking Facebook group or another group space like that. We'll have our group space on our calls, and then you can reach out to me as well through the process, particularly if you get stuck. The first few times I did this, I got so stuck in between the Queen and the Priestess, and I really needed help to like into the next gear. So I'm here right now. So this is my opportunity. I didn't get stuck last time or the time before. I'm not getting stuck this time either. Just watch me. So that's that. Yeah. that's that. So the Tuesday group will start on December 1st. It doesn't clash with the holidays, which is awesome. It flows over the new year, which is awesome, because I know that that's a really powerful time for a lot of people to adjust to a new way of being. The Friday group will start on December 3rd. And again, it goes for 3 months. So fortnightly calls for 3 months. It's going to be beautiful. I'm really, 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 really excited. And I decided to set the price a lot lower than I originally intended. My mentor was giving me a bit of trouble around this because she's like, Lou, this is a $1,500 program. And I'm like, I know, but I don't always have $1,500 and I want it to be really, really accessible. So I've set it at $555. If you want to bring a friend and they can be your check-in buddy, you can have it for $444 each and do it together. So that's kind of the dealio for the program. If you want to come and do the program, if you don't want to come and do the program, read the booklet, connect with this, and we can stay in touch about it. This work is continually evolving for me, but I would love to have you. I'm so pulsed and excited about this. I've run this 2 times previously and it's been absolutely beautiful. But the place that I've landed in since the most recent time that I shared this means that I just know it's going to be awesome. So I'm sure I don't need to tell you that it's going to be awesome. If you feel this, like if you feel this in your body, if you're feeling a yes, then awesome. Come, be with me. Let's do this. If you're not feeling a yes, please listen to that, because it means that it's just not right for you right now. If you still want to connect with me, we can still connect, we can still chat, we can still explore working together in a different way. But I really, really want you to listen to your body on this. Now, if your body is saying yes and you have no money, then please talk to me, because right from when I first started doing energy work, I said that I would never let money be an obstacle. If that full body yes is there, there is a way. We can work it out. I am doing payment plans. The standard payment plans like $55 a week. If that's still too much, talk to me. There are options. So that's all that kind of shebang. I'm still getting the hang of talking about that side of it, but it's cool. I feel like that's mostly it for today, but I do want to leave you with a parting transmission of loving goodness. So I really want to invite you to just allow everything that's been shared on this call so far to settle and integrate. You don't need to make a decision right now. I want to invite you to notice that beautiful breath again. I want to invite you to give yourself a big cuddle. I want to invite you to place your hands on your body. And I want to invite your crown chakra to open and receive a beautiful download that's going to support you no matter where your path takes you next. It is the download that is true for you. Your crown chakra is opening in response to my words if your body is in agreement with that. So if your body says yes to that, if your body says yes to that, if your soul says yes to that, then your crown chakra is opening. You're receiving this beautiful download that is custom designed by the universe, especially for you. And you're placing your hands on your body to let yourself receive it so fully. Letting yourself be so loved by Source, letting yourself be so loved by you, letting yourself be so loved by me right now. Just staying with your beautiful breath and letting this soak in. I feel like I need to make a sound. Hang on. Hope that wasn't too distorted through the tech waves, but letting this embrace you. Feeling your beautiful heart beating one more time. Bliss. Thank you so much, loves. Thank you so much for being here and showing up and supporting me. I trust this so much. And I'm gonna put the link, hang on, I'm gonna put the link in the chat box, and I'm gonna put the link underneath where I post this replay so that you can have a looky and you can book there if you want to come and party with the goddess and the goddesses, the one and the many. Thank you so much for being here. You're so loved. See you soon.